What's going on, brother? Today, I'm going to talk about the biggest reason we experience self-doubt and also how to overcome it. Welcome to my channel. My name is Gino, and today we're going to talk all about self-doubt. But first, I want to tell you a story about when I was held at gunpoint. And you heard me correctly, held at gunpoint. And believe it or not, I was actually 16 years old when this took place. It was a fucking crazy time. Just to give you some context, I grew up in a trailer park about 30 minutes north of Detroit. I mentioned in another video, some of the circumstances of how I lived. There was 8 people living inside the trailer with me. It was disgusting. People smoked in the house. There was stained yellow all over the walls. There was actually holes in the drywall, rats living in the house, toilets being rusted out through the bottoms. It was a terrible place to grow up in. And the neighborhood was just as bad. Not even just the trailer I lived in, but also the neighborhood itself. It was full of bullies, criminals, drug dealers, like anything that you could think of. People that were just vandals. And I experienced just about every single one of these people as a kid. Some of them I even knew on a personal level. Being that I was in this neighborhood, either whether it be walking to school or walking to a friend's house, I was frequently chased down by people and had my ass beat for no reasons than they just enjoyed it. I've also had people try to run me over with their cars and laugh about it, like think it's just a game to them. Like, it's fucking crazy, especially as a kid when you're experiencing like 11, 12, 13 years old, all the way up to like 16 when some crazier shit started happening to me. And then there was a time when I was 16 that I was held at gunpoint. And I had one of my buddies at the time come and pick me up. He's like, hey man, we got to go somewhere. I need you to come somewhere with me. I'm like, okay, just when you're 16 years old, you're like, freedom. Somebody has a car and a license. You're like, cool, I'm just going to jump in the car with you. Let's go. So I jump in the car with him, it's late at night, and we pull up to somebody's house. And there's these 2 guys standing outside, and one of them was acting really suspicious. This dude was suspect as hell. He had his hand in his pants the entire time he was talking to us. It was just a strange experience. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like this dude's got his hand in his pants. It's the middle of the night. There's 2 people out here. My buddy's kind of acting strange. He only rolls down his window about this much, my buddy, because it seemed like he was a little bit sketched out by this guy. The guy goes, do you got the money? And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And my buddy's like, well, do you got the stuff? I'm like, holy shit, is this like a drug deal? Like, what the fuck is going on? I didn't even know what was happening. I'm 16. And this guy goes, no, but just give me the money first. And the guy's like, I'm not going to give you the money. My buddy at the time, he's like, I'm not going to give you the money if you don't show me the stuff. Then this guy got a little agitated. And so he pulled a fucking gun out of his pants. The hand that he had in his pants the entire time was literally him holding a gun. And he held it up to the window. He literally cocked the motherfucker, and he pointed it directly at me and my buddy. And my buddy just fucking hit the gas and flew out of there. And this was one of many instances where I've been in very tricky situations. Situations I did not want to be in, situations that made me feel uncomfortable. And a lot of it had to do with the place I grew up in. It was very common, for my friends at like 14, 15, 16 years old to be into drugs. They also like to all stay the night at one kid's house because he had a single mom and it was easy to kind of break out. And they'd wait till she went to sleep and they'd break out of his fucking trailer and they'd go and they'd vandalize people's fucking houses. Like they would literally throw rocks through people's fucking windows at 1 o'clock in the morning, shattering the glass. Some of them would even like wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning before school and they either would get shit drunk, which was fucking weird. Why would you start chugging beers at 5 a.m.? Just weird fucking people, man. And some of my friends would actually drink full bottles of promethazine cough syrup before school. Now, if you don't know what promethazine cough syrup is, if you know who Lil Wayne is, that's what he used to drink. All the rappers back in the day, whatever that fucking purple drink was that they had. It was like cough syrup mixed with fucking Sprite or something, some bullshit. But he drank this before school. And I'm just like, dude, there was 0 fucking positive influences in my life. Like the people I were around were getting into fucked up things. Like they had like terrible consciences. Like they just were destructive people. And none of them had any type of positive impact on my life. None of them wanted better for me. None of them wanted better for themselves even. And the craziest part about this is when all these things are going on when I'm a kid, it just seems like all the people that I knew and I were friends with, none of them seen anything wrong with it. Like they were all just okay. Like, this is fine, They just agreed with it. Maybe they were scared, I don't know. Or maybe just kind of went with the flow. I'm sure that was probably the case for some of the people. But generally speaking, everybody agreed at least out loud. Nobody would be the person to stand out and feel out of place. That was except me. I literally felt every situation I was in, like when my buddies used to break out and go vandalize people's houses, I would pretend like I was sleeping or I was sick and didn't feel good. I didn't want to go because I'm like 14, 15, and there's people that are literally like, if you get caught by doing shit like that, like you go to fucking jail. Like that's what happens, and they're just like doing this with disregard, to any type of moral conscience. And they were just like being destructive as children. And it was just not the place I wanted to be around. And, I felt so out of place and uncomfortable that I started to like not trust myself. I'm like, maybe I'm a bitch. I don't know. Maybe I'm a pussy, or maybe I'm just thinking the wrong way. Maybe it's me that's the problem, because everybody else is doing this stuff. It was hard for me to see that I was the only one that had a problem with it. I started to just experience a lot of self-doubt, because it's much easier when we're in those situations just to fucking conform. Just to be like, hey, I'm just going to do what everybody else is doing, right? Because that feels like it's the easiest and most comfortable option. You don't want to stand out, and especially if you're a guy, you don't want to be the one to stand out and be the one that fucking everybody points at and be like, oh, what are you, a bitch? You're the one that's like not doing this, or you're the one that doesn't want to participate, or you're the one that doesn't want to fucking take these drugs. It's a wild world, man. So I know how hard that can be. I know how hard it can be to make the right decision, or to trust yourself sometimes, to not experience large amounts of self-doubt in your life, especially when the world around you seems like it's pushing you in a different direction and you just don't want to be there. But what if you're right? What if you're not wrong at all for feeling that way? What if you're not wrong for thinking that? What if you're actually right? And what would happen if you trusted yourself? If you trusted your own judgment? If you decided to act on the way that you felt? If you felt out of place, you felt like the world around you just didn't fit you, what happens if you were to trust yourself? How would your life change? What if the only thing that's wrong is your environment? What if the only thing that's wrong is your environment? It's not you at all. Maybe you're just in the wrong environment. You learn in biology, when a certain animal isn't in the right environment, they call it an invasive species. We're fucking animals, dude. Maybe you're not in the right environment. Maybe you were destructive to that environment, and that environment's destructive to you because you don't belong there. So maybe you're just in the wrong environment. I know for myself, when I decided to start trusting my judgment and just say, you know what, maybe I'm thinking the right way. You know what, fuck these people. I'm the black sheep. I don't want to deal with this stuff. I don't want to live here. I don't want to be around these people. They're not my influences. It was when I started to trust myself, I decided I'm going to make changes. So I started getting into fitness at the time. This is funny because I was looking for some sort of change, but I didn't think it would take place inside of a gym. But I started working out. And as I continued to work out, obviously my community was different. The people I was around was different. There was more positive influences. People were there for good reasons. They wanted to be better. They wanted to better themselves. They were working on themselves, and health was a value system to them. So being inside the gym environment, I wasn't around negative influences. I was around a positive community. It was crazy because, when I started going to the gym, I started to meet mentors, like people that wanted better for me. People that for some reason, which I never experienced before in my life, was that they wanted better for me. Some fucking stranger. They're like, hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? It's like they're giving me advice and guidance that I never got because the people around me were just fucking off. And I just felt out of place. But now it's like I felt like I was in a good environment. I was around people who supported me. I started to make friends who shared values with me. People that wanted the same things in life that I did. And it made me feel better about myself. I didn't start to doubt myself anymore because I'm like, there is people out there like me. I was just in the wrong environment. Being inside the gym environment too also helped me meet my wife. Not just have mentors and make friends, but it also helped me find my life partner, which is a fantastic thing. It's not easy to deal with all of these things in life when you feel like you're constantly wrong and having self-doubt, but it's even worse when you don't have somebody there that you could trust that can help guide you along the way. And my wife was that person for me. And I would have never met her if I didn't trust myself and change my environment. I would have never been in contact with her. She's a high-class broad. I would have never made contact with this woman. But since she was in the gym working on herself, it was an opportunity for me to meet her because I decided to trust myself and change my environment. It also gave me a career. When I started getting into fitness, it was like I didn't feel like I was contributing or adding value to the world. I just felt like it was always felt like a negative mood. Nothing I did was right in the eyes of all my peers. I felt like I had to constantly second guess and judge myself. I wasn't adding value. I just felt like I was being judged. I didn't feel like I was contributing at all. Besides being the source of the person who's different, just being the person to point at and say, look at what he's doing. He's the wrong one, right? So being inside the gym environment actually helped me form a career. I ended up starting to work with people as a trainer. I started to meet more individuals over time, and they expanded my mind and helped me see different realities that I just didn't know existed because I was around fucking criminals and drug dealers and vandals and bullies. And these people had different life experiences. These people were talking to me about their traveling. These people were teaching me about business, some sort of spirituality or religion. Like, there were so many different dimensions to the conversations I had. And those things would have never taken place if I would have stayed in the same environment constantly. If I would have never made that change, if I would have never trusted myself. Inevitably, at some point in your life, you're going to experience self-doubt, even if you relieve yourself of the cause of it. Like, you change your environment and you're going to experience it again at some point. Maybe you outgrow that environment that you just changed into. You'll experience self-doubt. So what helps me along the way is just remembering this story. One day, there's a baby camel and a mother camel sitting next to each other under a palm tree. And they look at each other, and the baby camel looks up to the mom and says, "Mom, why do we have long legs and hoofs?" And she said, "Well, son, we have long legs and hoofs because a desert is a very sandy place. And the long legs and hoofs help us walk across the sand." He goes, "Okay, but why do we have big humps on our backs? Why do we have those?" And she looks at him and says, "Well, son, the desert is a very hot place. And the humps help us store water." He's like, "Okay, that makes sense. But what about the long eyelashes? Why do we have long eyelashes?" And she said, "Look, son, we have long eyelashes because the desert is a very windy place, and it helps us keep sand out of our eyes." He said, "Okay, we got long legs and hoofs, we got humps on our back for water, and we got long eyelashes for the desert. Then why do we live in the zoo?" So whenever you experience self-doubt, whenever you feel like you're in the wrong environment, just remind yourself that you may be a camel in the zoo.